the use of money in the classical and Hellenistic period from the perspective of the state budget was truly simple. Military expenses, fleet, administrative expenses. That's enough. Certainly more complicated and much more modern are state expenditures in the late Antiquity and the Byzantine period. My speech, rather than addressing the economic question in a general way, intends to focus on economic problem of late antiquity concerning the real value of gold solids, which tended to lose weight due to consumption. Until the creation of solidus by Constantine, the problem had never arisen because gold was exchanged only by weight. Can you see?
Yes.
Dimosios zygos and idiotikos zygos, numismatic interpretation. A 6th century papyrus discovered in Antinopolis, the capital of the Thebaid and the seat of the duke during the Byzantine era, records a private loan involving a small sum of gold. We Avrili Ioannis Herning, weavers of fabrics that imitate those of Tarsos, and his wife Maria, daughter of Marcos, both originally from the city of the Antinoitis, to Avrili Theophilos, the most pious steward of the saint and glorious martyr Abba Colluthos, and Agape, his consort, both originally from the same city of the Antinoitis. Greetings. We agree by virtue of a mutual guarantee, the undersigned Ioannis and his wife Maria, thanks to the written guarantee for ours, we have received as an advance loan from you in favor of me, Ioannis, 2 golden solidi minus 4 carats, according to the zygos, the balance of the Antinoitis, which are 2 golden solidi minus 4 carats, according to the zygos of the Antinoitis. And we agree to have received them and to return them to you as required without interest, and we don't know what. Evidently, is a private contract. Avrili Theophilos, most pious steward of the holy and glorious martyr Abba Colluthos, and his companion Agape, lent 2 gold numismata to Avrili Ioannis, a salaried craftsman skilled in carpet weaving, and his wife Maria, daughter of Marcos. The papyrus, found in a refuse dump associated with the sanctuary of Abba Colluthos, was likely the copy kept by the steward. Our primary interest arises from the fact that the text explicitly states that the loan amount would be paid according to the idiotikos zygos of Antinopolis, with each nomisma being calculated at the value of 22 carats instead 24 carats normally. Careful reading of the document reveals non-elements suggesting a public registration of the act, nor does it indicate that the 2 contracting parties agreed to involve public authorities, either to register the contract or the weight the coins involved in the loan. The papyrus reintroduced the debate around the idiotikos zygos, offering new avenues for inquiry and critique and of the prevailing scholarly proposition. In the document and analysis, the idiotikos zygos cannot be interpreted as a tax, since no registration of the private contract was stipulated. Likewise, the hypothesis that it represents a fee to be paid to zygostatis for weighing the coins is unconvincing, as such an operation was not provided for in the agreement between the parties. Ultimately, the papyrus demonstrates that the calculation of the numismata at 22 karatia, according to idiotikos zygos of Antinopolis, was unrelated to public administration and seemingly offered some benefit within the context of private contracts. Building on this hypothesis, this study aims to contextualize the adioticos zygos by examining actual documents, avoiding preconceived frameworks that might force the evidence into an artificial interpretation of the phenomenon. As well is well known, each nomisma in the empire, not only in Egypt, theoretically weighed 24 keratia, which would be verified using exagia, official monetary weights frequently found in archaeological excavation. The theoretical weight of 24 keratia, or silique, was referred to in sources as the limosios zygos, correctly translated by Michael Andy as the public standard. This was the weight of coins distributed by the state as salaries to its soldiers and officials. We must preliminarily add that, in our view, the Roman government always used newly minted coins for payments and never distributed coins that had been withdrawn from circulation after being collected as taxes and simply placed in imperial treasure for redistribution. The reasoning behind such a procedure is straightforward, stemming from the desire to prevent disputes caused by the arbitrariness of paying officials who might favor some individuals by paying salaries and reimbursement in better quality coins, to the detriment of others who would have to accept worn specimens. This practice also explains the existence of bronze coins that were reminted even if the emperor who had originally issued them remained the same and the face value of the coin was unchanged. We will discuss this topic in more depth later. Given this premise, it can be asserted that due to the precision of the weight of gold coin minted by imperial mints, the system allowed numismata and their fractional denomination, semisses and tremisses, to be counted rather than weighed at the time of state payments, counted, not weighed. However, large sums were still required to be placed in sealed bags indicating the weight of the gold contained. The same procedure likely applied to bronze coin, which, thanks to the numeral on their reverse, did not need to be weighed during state payments or when used in local trade. When it came to tax collection, however, the state could not merely count the coins, as this would not account for the natural loss of weighing in gold coins due to wear on deliberate reduction, such as clipping. Instead, the coin had to be weighted to ensure that the gold weight corresponded to the amount owed by taxpayer. This procedure is explained by an edict from Emperor Valentinianus I, addressed to the Praetorian prefect Rufinus in 360 CE, current era. In it, the emperor reaffirmed his previous order, sicut iad pridem precepimus, evidently issued in a no-loss law to melt down all solidi collected from taxpayers into a single mass of pure gold and send it to the Sacre Largitiones to be recoined into new gold coins. The purified gold mass received a mark of approval from the responsible official, or in case of rejection, was sent to the comitatus for verification. This measure aimed to prevent fraud by treasury personnel, escorts, or tax collectors who might substitute solidi with counterfeit coins. The existence of underweight solid in circulation is attested by a decree in Codex Ossianus in 363 AD. The Emperor Julianus establishes the zygostate, public weighers, likely prompted to the emperor to take this action to ensure the high quality of fiscal revenues in gold. From the time of Gratianus and Valentinianus II, newly minted coins made from purified gold were marked with the letter OB, as you can see, Aurum Obrizatum, and gold minting activities were concentrated in cities housing the imperial court. When ancient sources refer to the Zimosios Zygos, they are explicitly referring intact coin of good weight that had not undergone any alteration. In economic context, where gold currency was scarce and transaction in solidi were unfrequent, the state's control of coins used in commerce could be relatively straightforward. However, in Egypt and the Near East, where gold was abundant and transaction in solidi were commonplace, ensuring the integrity of the weight posed a practical challenge. These are to be addressed to minimize as much as possible the costly recourse to public balances and the payment of associated fees. This is the problem, the fees. The problem of gold ware in the circulation of gold solidi. As demonstrated by Maria K. Papatanasiou, the origin of the compensation of 6 nomismata per pound, equivalent to 2 carats per nomisma, stems from empirical awareness of the natural metal loss during gold minting processes. Similarly, practical experience established a flat compensation of 3 nomismata per pound, equivalent to 1 carat per nomisma, for gilding operations. This issue was also evident in the circulation of gold coins, which tended to lose weight due to constant wear as they passed from hand to hand. Even Emperor Justinianus, in the margines of a novella on usufruct, remarked that pecunia ipso uso absidua permutatio quodammodo extinguitur. Money is, in a sense, consumed through constant use and exchange. A significant reflection of users' mistruths of solid of varying sizes appears in a strict decree by Emperor Constantine, included in the Codex Theodosianus. The law forbade, under penalty of death, the valuation of new solidi based on the size of the imperial portrait. You can see Imperator Constantinos to Leontio Prefectus at Praetorium. All solidi bearing our likeness and veneration are to be valued and sold at the same price, even if their dimension differ. For neither is a coin with a larger portrait of greater value, nor is one with a smaller portrait to be considered worth less, as their weight remains the same. Anyone who does otherwise should either be punished with death, burned, or subjected to another fatal penalty. The same punishment shall apply to anyone who trims to the outer edge of a coin to reduce his weight, or who introduce a counterfeit imitation when selling, given on the 7th day before, etc., etc. Interpretation. Wherever trims a coin, substitutes it with a counterfeit, or produce false money shall be punished by death. Although this degree diverges from our main topic, we have included it because it was issued by Constantine the Great, the very author of the monetary system reform introducing the solid. At that time, no war coins from previous emperors could have been in circulation. Yet, as evidenced, the market still attempted to assign varying values to coin of potentially lower weight, using empirical methods such as the smaller diameter of the flan, which translated into smaller size for the imperial figure on the obverse of the specimens. From the emperor's perspective, he reaffirmed that all solidi had the same weight, a claim that evidently did not apply to emission of early emperors, as gold coin had always been spent by weight rather by number, contrary to Constantine's ambitious reform, which guaranteed 24 keratia for his coinage. In our view, this confirms the eternal law of the market, which tend to create old and new coins, assigning different values to various emissions. Learning from this lesson means increasingly standardized not only the legal weight of the solid, but also the diameter of the flan and stabilized the monetary designs. Returning to the natural weight loss of gold coin, beyond the pragmatic and empirical approaches evidenced by hordes of the era, we find clear legislative traces addressing this issue. One noteworthy example is a section of the 11th book of the Codex Justinianus, titled De Veteris Numismatis Potestate, on the authority of old coinage, recently analyzed by Andrea Filocomo. It comprises 3 constitutions dealing specifically with the value of solidi minted by early emperors compared to those issued by reigning sovereign. The first was promulgated by Augusti, Valentinianus I, and Valens. The second by Valentinianus I, Valens, and Gratianus, and the third dates to the time of Gratianus, Valentinianus II, and Theodosius I. Valentinianus and Valens, Augusti, Germanianus, Prefecto Praetorio. We decree that the solid of previous rulers minted in compliance with the prevailing regulations shall be offered and accepted by both buyers and sellers, so that no refusal of these coins may ever arise under any circumstances, provided they are of proper weight and correct appearance. Let it be known that to all that anyone acting otherwise will be punished severely. In the first constitution, the somewhat ambiguous stance of the Augusti regarding the issue of the natural weight loss of imperial solidi becomes apparent. On the one hand, the emperors demanded there be no objection to gold coins venerazione formati by their predecessors since Constantine, and that no one arrogates the right to refuse a coin bearing the likeness of a past ruler. On the other hand, it explicitly stated that this law applies only modo ut debiti ponderis sint specie probe, without clarifying how a civis Romanus should act when confronted with a coin minted decades earlier and visibly underweight compared to the Dimosios Zivos. We also note in passing that the penalty mentioned in the value clocked in a aud leviter that is open to interpretation and likely difficult to enforce in practice. Valentinianus and Valens Augusti and Gratianus Augusto to Julianus, Prefecto Praetorio. Due to reduction that may accidentally occur in the valuation of the solidi, it is appropriate the price of all other goods should also decrease accordingly. The second decree reveals an idealistic attempt by the emperors to demand that in the face of a temporary and incidental, not intentional, forte decline or in the value of gold, leading to a decrease in the purchasing power of the solidi, the entire price system should adjust, triggering a deflationary process. What price are the Augusti referring to? In our view, not market prices, over which the Praetorian prefect Julianus would have little control, but rather those of the imperial supplies for the army and administration. The state sought to preserve the purchasing power of his cornerstone currency to avoid dangerous budgetary gaps caused by fluctuation in the gold market. While this aspect lies outside our primary focus, it demonstrates the emperor's acute attention to the relationship between the valuation of gold currency and state accounting. Gratianus, Valentinianus, and Theodosius Augusti to Arintheus, prefecto, praetor. Your authority, throughout the promulgation of this edict, shall remind everyone to demand a uniform price for all obriziaci solidi, punishing accordingly with capital punishment both those who, out of the greed-driven obstinacy, have disregarded the commands of our Majesty, and those who have undervalued the eternal effigies in pursuit of illicit profit. The third document strongly reaffirms the uncertainty surrounding the valuation of coins minted by earlier emperors. In this specific case, the decree is correctly dated to 379 Anno Domini. The emperors intended to protect at least the issues minted after 360 Anno Domini, when the weight and alloy of all emission from the imperial mints were guaranteed. 13 years later, while the alloy of gold coins was no longer in question, the problem re-emerged with the natural weight loss of the solid. As evident from the Constitution, the emperors aimed to defend not their own freshly minted issues, but the eternales vultus of their immediate predecessors, which, due to character reduction, were becoming less accepted in the market. This situation illustrates the eternal dilemma of Roman coinage, perpetually oscillating between pretium, value, and merx, commodity. To what extent could the state impose its valuation against the laws of the market? Valentinianus III. O Quirites, we receive constant complaints regarding a reckless audacity. In defiance of our ancestors, the solidi minted in their name are being rejected by every buyer. We cannot tolerate such action and remain unpunished for long. Therefore, throughout this edict, we declare that the entire community should know that anyone who dares to reject or undervalue a full-weight gold solidus bearing the name of my father, the Dominus Theodosius, of our sacred king, or of preceding emperors will face execution. Furthermore, the illustrious Prefectus Urbis and his staff shall be subject to a fine of 10 pounds of gold if it's proven that anyone has acted contrary to this decree. By the ordinance, we also decree that it be held in perpetuity that no solidus is ever to be sold by a private individual to a collectarius for less than 7,000 nummi, while being purchased by the states from a collectarius from 7,200. Uniformity of price will protect both the interests of the seller and the established prices of all market goods. To ensure that fraud in weights is entirely eradicated, we shall provide exagia, standard weights, which must be kept without deceit under the penalty outlined above. By divine mandate, let this be presented to our most beloved Roman people. Valentinianus sought to punish those who, with reckless audacity, temerari ausus, refuses or devalue the solidi bearing the names of his father Theodosius II, or members of the imperial household, such as coin minted by Ella Pulcheria, Elia Eudocia, Galla Placidia, Justa Gratonoria, and Licinia Eudoxia, it seemed that the imperial focus was primarily on the collectari, those who purchased solidly on the market to supply the states, earning a regular profit from the price differential. However, they evidently speculated on the value of the solid, undervaluing those that did not bear Valentinian's name, even when they were of full weight. Hence, the decree, which, while aimed primarily in the collectari, also generally addressed those who traded solid. The final reference to fraud involving weights indicates that dispute often arose in such transaction and that the collectari themselves may have tried to pass off more worn and lighter coin to the state while receiving full price in return. Counting and not weighting. The emperors paid with new coinage. It seemed very strange that the peculiarity of Roman administration, which lasts through the period we improperly call Byzantine, has not been noted, creating a break in the continuum of the empire's history. When the state paid what was due, it did so with brand new coinage to be counted at the time of payment, avoiding the bother of weighing it for each payment. This rule, which I have never found indicated in numismatic texts, appears fundamental for understanding the modus operandi of the Roman state apparatus and seem to apply safely to all metals used for minting coins, not just for the more precious one. This unwritten law allows us to understand with fresh eyes phenomena such as the countermarking of coin in contexts that did not allow for new minting, such as in the legionary camps. Empirically, we know many coins with countermarks from the various legions. The traditional explanation, which holds that the countermark was applied to change the coin's value or to allow the circulation of foreign specimens, is not disproven. But one must also consider the necessity to make payments with new coins. What has been said also applies to certain phenomena of reminting, traditionally explained as a means to increase the value of a specimen already in circulation, or not allow the use of foreign currency. While this motivation remains relevant, they not explain cases of reminting on specimens of the same emperor and with the same value, such as, for example, the 1,000 of coin of Heraclius, 610-641 AD, that appear struck on undertype minted by the same emperor without modification of value, sometimes with 3 or more successive remintings. This phenomenon, in that historical context, finds its justification in the invasion of the Persians, which had led to the loss and the closing of almost all the means of the empire, with the needs for the workshops in Constantinople to mint coins for all the Roman economic necessity. It's clear that the reminting procedure allowed for saving the time of manufacturing new blanks while still maintaining the rule of payments with newly minted currency. In the same chronological framework and with the same necessity, the phenomenon of countermarks on reminting with reduces modul dies applied to follies from the previous era by the Mint of Syracuse, which had just been authorized to issue currency, also fits in. In our opinion, this is also a matter of balancing the war emergency with the state norm of paying with freshly minted specimens. Scholars familiar with hoards of Roman coins, which often contain specimens preserved over more than a century, know well that regarding gold, the most recent coins are almost always of correct weight, while this is not the case for those that have circulated for decades, proving that the solidi and their divisions at the time of their market introduction were in line with their theoretical weight, minted al pezzo. Because of his empirical evidence, we find it necessary to add that the rule of counting coins at the time of payments by the states did not apply to tax collection, when currency was instead carefully weighted to avoid problem of wear of the specimen due to circulation over time. The idioticos zygos status questions. The most systematic approach to the issue of the idioticos zygos is provided by Michael Handy and C. Zuckerman. Handy, starting from the observation that in Egypt, as in the rest of the Roman world, the monetary system was based on the solidus aureus with a theoretical weight of 24 keratia, equivalent in terms of weight to hexagon, noted that this standard was referred to as the demosios zygos. Any payment made according to this standard was thus called demosios zygo, a term what meaning left no room for doubt. Assume in demosios zygo imply payment in full weight solidi aureae. However, the Egyptian papyrological documentation does not only reference some expressed in the demosios zygo, but also included other terms that have sparked an endless scholarly debate. Focusing on the papyri from Oxyrhynchus, and denoted that the most common of this weight standard was referred as the idioticos zygos, from which payment in idioticos zygo are derived, as indicated in surviving sources. Drawing on assertion by Johnson and West, Handy argued that the difference between the two standards was determined by 2 keratia that needed to be added to idioticos zygos to equal the demosios zygos. In the village and the come of Aphrodito, instead of the idioticos zygos, there is a reference to a chrysokoikos stathmos, which translates to goldsmith standard. According to Handy, resulting in payments made chrysokoiko stathmo. In these cases, according to the no examples, the difference between the local standard and the imperial one consists the amount of 2 carats less. This reveals a system in which 2 distinct standards seem to coexist. An official one, the demosios zygos, and the local one, referred to as idioticos zygos, or chrysokoikos stathmos, which is valued 2 carats below the former. As Andy observed, since it is impossible for solidi of lesser weight to always be missing exactly 2 carats, the question arises as to why local standards were introduced, and they attributed this to inevitable reduction in the weight of the circulation gold currency present in Egypt. For this reason, according to Andy, state officials that involved in monetary transaction, either private individuals, may have deemed it practical to account for a standard deduction of 2 keratia to compensate for inevitable loss in weight of gold coins. And this suggests 2 possible methods to facilitate such a procedure. Supplementary coin payments to align the theoretical and actual sums, or attached agreement between parties to consider the coin involved in the transaction as 2 carats short. The latter system, according to Andy, would still require calculation, as neither public official nor private citizen would accept a flat rate payment, clearly unfavorable to the recipient. given the general weight loss of coin which exceeded the hypothetical 2-carat deduction. Examining Egyptian sources, Andy found numerous instances of solid counted simultaneously by number and by weight, continuing even beyond the arrival of the Arab conquerors. Of particular interest is the reference to the standardized weight for solid in other regions. In Gaza, for instance, there was the zygos tongaseon, which required the deduction of 1 carat per nomism. Similarly, a letter from Gregory the Great, Gregorius Magnus, indicates a deduction of half of carat for solidus in Sicily. Zuckerman takes a different stance. Like Andy, he recognized the essential equivalence between the chrysocoicos stathmos in village, comai, and the idiotikos zygos in city, poleis, noting that the term zygos referred to official wagers installed in every city since Emperor Julianus' reign, while in villages weights were likely overseen by local goldsmiths. Drawing from papyrological evidence, Zuckerman noted that the weight reduction of the solidus in the chrysocoicos stathmos does not always amount to 2 keratia. It ranges from 1 keration to 2 3/4. He argued that this represents an economic indicator of uncertain interpretation, suggesting a dual devaluation of the solidus. The first due to the chrysocoicos stathmos, and the second relative to its actual weight. A practical solution to the problem, the idiotikos zygos. As noted in the imperial laws previously mentioned, the problem of the erosion of gold coin weight was a pressing issue in the late Antiquity and Byzantine worlds. The imperial demand to raise war coins, some of which had been in circulation for decades, at full value, must have proved unrealistic. The market and economy operate under rigid rules to which even the government and emperor could not fully exempt themselves. From the state perspective, the practical answer lay in the establishment of zygostat, official who ensure tax collection, whether in bronze or gold, guaranteeing that the amount paid corresponded exactly to what was owed. They ensured that the keratia owed by taxpayers matched those actually delivered. In commercial hubs, where gold was not part of daily transaction, example Grazia, Sicily, which nonetheless saw large-scale purchase of grain paid in solidi auri. The use of zygostate, despite the associated cost, must have been regarded as an effective solution. Transactions conducted using state-regulated balances were likely perceived as secure and reliable. In contrast, the situation was different in more commercially vibrant regions such as Egypt and various cities in Diogenes Orientis, where gold coins circulated widely and were part of everyday transaction. How could the need to rely on zygostates from modest amounts or private loans, as exemplified by the private contract preserved on papyrus mentioned earlier, be circumvented? How could the circulation of goods and services involving gold payments proceed without the deficient weight of older coin hindering taxation? The answer, in our view, could only have been to standardize the circulation of gold coin from previous emperor, while treating coins minted by the reigning Augustus as inherited full weight, dimosio zygo. Coins from earlier emperors, sometimes in circulation for over a century, were subjected to idiotikos zygos, which imposed a standardized deduction of X, Y keratia, depending on the historical period and local market condition. Thus, during Justinianus I's reign in Egypt and also in Antioch and other parts of the empire, solidi minted under Justinianus were rated at 24 karat, while those issued by his predecessors were reduced by a number of karat determined by local administration. These coins were used in private exchange without requiring state-regulated balances. This seemingly simple solution also offered the advantage of being locally controlled by restricting the idioticos to closed and defined geographic areas. Local authorities could adjust the number of keratia subtracted from older coins. Within the same region, at different chronological points, the idioticos could vary significantly, reflecting local authorities' attentiveness to the quality of the gold coins circulated in their jurisdiction. The first natural consequence of the idioticos was that the most lightweight and worn gold coins circulating in Mediterranean, such as emission with lower gold content, e.g. the exempli grazie del restitutor coins of Valentinianus I and Valens before the Obrizza reform, you can see the coin, found their way into markets into major Egyptian cities and the Near East, effectively protected by their standardized valuation, the idioticos zygos. For example, data from the gold hoard of St. Colutus from Antinopolis, buried in the late reign of Justinianus within the same sanctuary as the papyrus Loan mentioned earlier, demonstrated this. The coin hoard contains coins from Constantius II, 337-361 AD, to Justinianus, 527 to 565 AD. The theoretical weight of its 107 solidi should have been 771 grams, equivalent to 4,080 karat. But the real weight is only 658 grams, 3,481 keratia, with a loss of 599 keratia, or an average of 3.5 keratia per solidum. Reality, 3.5 keratia for each solidus, idioticos zygos, 2 keratia less from each solidus. It's evident that such heavily debased coins were drawn into the monetary circulation area of the Thebaid precisely because the idioticos zygos legally set their value at 22 carats for coins weighing only 20.5 carats instead of 24 carats in private exchanges where the state played no role. In our view, it was this practice that led to the minting of the solidi weighing 22 and even 20 carats, as indicated by the legend in the exergue Ob Decem and Ob Viginti, from the reign of Justinianus I to that of Heraclius. This coin allowed for currency of the same weight as those circulating in a lump sum manner, thanks to idioticos zygos. With the Arab conquest of the Near East and Egypt, markets for which the for which the idioticos zygos had been primarily conceived, the state no longer felt to need to resort to gold coins of reduced weight. Such later coins, gold coins, would reappear in the 11th century under the name tetartera, when the situation of gold currency circulation likely made it advantageous for the state to mint numismata with weights approximating those specimens already present in the market. Thank you for your kind attention.
Allora, so we think we can switch to Italian. Parliamo in italiano. Sì, mi sentite? Sì. Parliamo in italiano adesso. Grazie, professor Castrizio. Noi direi che ci prendiamo una decina di minuti di pausa e poi facciamo la discussione sempre in italiano. D'accordo? Perfetto. Allora ci vediamo fra una decina di minuti.
Grazie, va bene, a dopo.